You're listening to the King of the Fourth podcast, offering in-depth analysis on all things Boston Celtics, with your hosts, Jim and Mike Quigley.
Yeah, Mike, here we are, an emergency podcast because the Celtics have made a blockbuster trade, and I'm going to let you take it away because you're the one that predicted this would happen. You're the one that said you wanted this to happen. You don't care what they gave up, and they gave up a significant amount. And so the parameters of the trade, then I'll give it to you, is Jrue Holiday is a Boston Celtic, and in return, the Celtics are sending Rob Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, a 2024 Golden State first-round pick that the Celtics acquired in the Marcus Smart, Kristaps Porzingis trade, and then a future first. Mike, so two firsts, Rob and Malcolm Brogdon. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, that future first is a 2029 unprotected, so I think that's a really good get for Portland. For the Celtics, I love it, and for Portland, I also love it. I think Portland has done tremendous with Damian Lillard, now Jrue Holiday, and soon to be moving probably Malcolm Brogdon and possibly Rob too. I think the Celtics have the best starting lineup in the NBA. I put them as the favorites to win this thing. I think my one concern is probably the concern that everybody has. I feel like they were already thin at center because the centers they had, there were concerns about their health and how reliable they would be. You know, Porzingis has never played a full season. Al Horford can't give you minutes every night. He needs a lot of nights off. And your third center is Luke Cornett, who's going to have to play a big role on this team now during the regular season. And obviously the Celtics will probably pick up another big, but they're pretty thin. I think they're loaded within their, first six guys. And then after that, it's guys who have shined here and there, like a Pritchard and a Brissett and Sam Hauser, but they're a little thing coming off their bench. But overall, I think that Holiday brings a good ball handler, which I don't think the Celtics necessarily had last year. Actually, an elite ball handler, a proven point guard who's won a championship, and in my mind, maybe the best on-ball defender in the NBA. So where you lost Rob on the defensive end and Smart and Grant Williams, you got something back, I think, with Porzingis and now Jrue Holiday. The Celtics are an elite level team, and they got to keep Derek White, Jim. And I think that was something you were concerned about on the last pod, is that White would be included in this trade. And now Derek White will get to start at his true position, two guard, next to an elite point guard. And I love the trade. I wish Rob nothing but the best, but you could argue the Blazers won the trade. Maybe they did with all they got, but sometimes you have to lose a trade to win a championship.
Oh, look at that. Some, high-level philosophy there at the end. Lose a trade to win a championship.
Yeah, because, you could argue that they're going to turn these picks into good players and Rob could end up being an all-star. But if the Celtics win a championship this year,
if you win a championship, you don't lose a trade. If Jrue Holiday, both teams win.
I think you get what I'm saying, though, right?
So, yeah. So, look, I think the positive right off the bat is that on the floor, Jrue Holiday is a very, very good player, better player than Malcolm Brogdon. Much more reliable health-wise than, either Brogdon or Rob Williams. Like you said, Mike, he's a great defensive player. He's a two-time All-Star, five-time All-NBA defensive player. He immediately becomes your best on-ball defender, and the talent level is pretty extraordinary when you start to look at what came in and what left. The Celtics traded, Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, Mike Muscala and some draft picks for Kristaps Porzingis and Rob Williams, for Kristaps Porzingis and Jrue Holiday. And I think on a talent level, it's an upgrade. And to kind of hit home the positive too is I think you hurt your top competitors in the East. You narrowed the gap or leapfrog, however you want to look at it. It's pretty close between yourself in Milwaukee. The one thing I didn't think you had as of just a couple hours ago was someone that you could, put on Dame Lillard as a primary defender. And I thought that was a huge advantage for Milwaukee. Jrue Holiday, you can do that. Lillard's still wonderful, and you'll need to find other ways to help, and you'd have to be creative defensively in a playoff series. But Holiday makes life easier on that end, without a doubt. You look at Philly.
And now you have two guys. You have two guys that can cover Lillard, where prior to this trade, you really only had one.
Yeah, I'm not even sure you had one. You had White that would give it a shot. I'm sure they'd throw some Pritchard at him. But I think it would have been difficult for either guy. It's not really the strongest suit of their game, whereas Holiday, this is what he does. He's an on-ball guy, and he just raises the bar considerably on that end. And then you also hurt Miami and Philadelphia. Philadelphia's still stuck with James Harden and doesn't know what they wanted to do. I'm sure they would have loved to see somehow flip Harden and Holiday here and figure out how they could work that out. And then Miami, they thought they were getting Dame Lillard just a couple days ago. And now Milwaukee has Dame Lillard and the Celtics have Jrue Holiday, and you're stuck with Tyler Hero. I just think it's, it's almost, I'm wondering if they're going to offer the package they were offering for Dame Lillard for Malcolm Brogdon now down in Miami.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't trade for a guy who gets hurt.
So it's an interesting chain of events. It's a huge swing. The talent level has risen. It doesn't mean that this doesn't have risk. And there is risk. There's a chance that Rob Williams, a year and a half away from surgery, gets back to being in his old self and has his best year of his career. And if that's the case, he might even be better than Aiden over in Portland. We talked about that when Rob was healthy. That's how dynamic Rob was. And I don't think we should forget that and just push it aside as well. He's never healthy anyways. Because if it ever works with him, he could be the best player in this trade. I don't want to minimize that. I would have rolled the dice with the risk because you have not seen Rob on the floor enough. But I don't want to just say it's not going to happen for him. And I'm rooting for him, by the way. I love Rob. Great personality. Great Celtic. I hope it all works out. And it does turn out that way for him. The second risk on this is that how's this going to look on the floor? How are they going to mix and match this talent? Does it fit? We talked about how they were going to change their defensive identity. Well, what does it mean now that Holiday's here? He's more of a switchable guy than Brogdon is. Do they get back to switching? Holiday's going to be really your fourth option on offense. In the pecking order behind Tatum, Brown, Porzingis. Then it's Holiday, even though Holiday will have the ball in his hand. He's pretty much a fourth option. And what does this mean, in terms of your starting five? Is it Horford or is it White? And if it's White coming off the bench, how does he handle that? Because he's certainly an NBA starter in the prime of his career going for his next contract. Go ahead, Mike. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it would be really dumb at this point to start a 37-year-old Al Horford, maybe in the playoffs. Right now, I think you limit him as much as possible this season.
I tend to agree with that. Yeah.
Even if that means Luke Cornett's playing more minutes than him in the regular season. I'm at that point, and Derek White's earned the right. He's better than Al Horford as a player, too, at this point.
Yeah, and it'll probably be matchup related. I think against Milwaukee, you'll see a lot of Al. Against Philadelphia, you'll see a lot of Al. Against Miami, maybe you see a lot less of Al. And I think that's kind of what you will see. The other thing, and this gets lost, and I didn't realize this, and still I kind of dug in. Holiday has not been a good playoff performer throughout his career. He was in the championship run, but on the whole, he has not performed well. He's shot poorly. He kind of disappeared last year against Miami. He disappeared, at times versus the Celtics. He had a great game 5 in the comeback when the Milwaukee was down 10 and he had that play at Smart. But we forget from most of that series, he was not that good. And on the flip side, Marcus Smart, despite what you will hear on the radio, was a really good playoff performer throughout his career. had some really big moments. On the whole, was pretty goddamn consistent. People didn't love the shots he took, but there were shots given to him because they took it away from Tatum and Brown. I just, in
Didn't
this
he
small
score like?
sample, go ahead, Mike.
Didn't he score like 30 points in Game 7 against Toronto in the bubble? Something insane like that. Didn't he have a game in the bubble, in the
Who's
playoffs,
Smart?
in the big playoff? Yeah. Didn't he
Yeah,
have
and he
like
had
a
that
huge?
big block on Noah Powell in Game 7 in the bubble. I mean, Smart has
Yeah.
come up big over and over again in the playoffs. But he's not here. So it's a small sample size, so maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe it does, but it's this idea that you automatically get better in the playoffs with Holiday instead of Smart. Well, it doesn't bear out in recent history. So
In recent
so I think that's important to know too. But then again, Holiday's the fourth best player on this team. You're going to take away, you can't take away Tatum, Brown, and Porzingis. So there's more options than Marcus Smart had when he's here for Holiday to help with. I would have done the trade. I think it would be foolhardy to say there's no risk here. There's always risk, and there's always.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yep. And just for one point of correction on you, I never was concerned that they were going to trade Derek White. I didn't think Derek White would be included in this deal. I was more pissed about the kind of commentary about Derek White leading up into this deal. Mike, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if the odds have already flipped and the Celtics are the favorite. I mean, it's close between them and Milwaukee. Milwaukee just had campaign, so the signings continue. And the last thing I'll say before I throw it back to you is, you're seeing a lot of concern about the Celtics' depth in the front court. Reasonable. It's really not much different than how they entered last season. In fact, it's a little bit better than how they entered last season because Rob wasn't even available. So you had Horford and a bunch of guys and Blake Griffin. Now you have Horford and Porzingis and Cornette, and I'm sure they're going to bring someone in here. I wouldn't be surprised within 24 hours if we hear Blake Griffin's back.
Yeah, I mean, they got to bring in somebody for training camp, right? I think they were playing Noah Vonleh last year.
Yeah, they were. They were.
Yeah, I think he even started a game. Yeah, Jim, that was really good analysis by you. I think that I really tend to agree with what you're saying about Smart and Holiday. I think the recent history is a really important point that you made because I do remember Holiday having some big moments when he was in Philadelphia. The 7-game series here against Boston, Kevin Garnett, I think it was like 2012.
That's unbelievable. You're right. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Quinn Turner was for the Sixers too.
He's been around for a while. The way I look at it is this could be a little bit of an overreaction to the struggles against Miami because if you had Holiday in that point guard and not Marcus Smart, maybe your offense is playing much better at the end of the game in Game 6, and it doesn't come down to a tip-in by Derek White after we blew a 1,000,000-point lead like we did in previous seasons against Miami too. So maybe they're looking for more of a presence at that position and looking at Holiday as a guy as the fourth best option. We don't need 19.7 points a game from him like Milwaukee got last year. We need like 12 to 14. And we need him to fill that role and to be efficient as a scorer and not a volume shooter. Because in Milwaukee last year, he was a volume shooter. He put up a lot of shots. And that would not work here because he shoots at a low percentage. His 3-point shooting percentage is right around the Marcus Smart range. Yeah. And lower in his playoff career. Marcus Smart's actually been a better playoff 3-point shooter for his career than Holiday. So it's all about what kind of guy Holiday is, which everything I've heard, and we'll find out if this is true, is that he's just like the ultimate team guy, that he's gonna buy into his role. And he really has to, because the shot makers on the Celtics are Porzingis, Brown, and Tatum. And between the three of them, when they're healthy and they're playing, they're going to take up like 60 to 70% of your offense in a playoff series because they're just that talented. So everybody else has to hit open shots and fill those roles. Overall, again, I love the trade. My biggest concern outside of the bench that I mentioned earlier is you always had 3 guys that you could put on Joel Embiid and cover him one-on-one and say, hey, he's probably going to get his points, but he's not working. He's working the hardest against the Celtics probably than anybody else in the NBA. We've had Grant Williams, Al Horford, and Rob. And then on the flip side, when you were playing Milwaukee, you kind of went into that too, saying we got multiple guys. We can build these walls with Rob, with Al, with Grant. And now 2 out of those 3 guys are gone. And they really weren't replaced with anybody that I go into those series saying I feel comfortable at all that the Celtics have anything to throw at Embiid and stop him. And I don't know if they have anything to throw at Giannis at this point and stop him. So they're going to have to find different ways to win where maybe they accept Giannis and Embiid beating them on the offensive end and shutting everybody else down, which has been a tactic that other teams have used against them, against Philadelphia and Milwaukee. But I definitely think that's a threat too, is that they don't have the depth that they used to have to cover those elite superstars in the East. And we'll see how that plays out. I feel like Embiid and Giannis are probably going to get theirs when they play the Celtics now at a more efficient level.
Well, yeah, maybe. I think the thing that really helps Embiid is having Lillard there.
You mean Giannis?
Yeah, Giannis. But I think, Giannis, and losing Grant, definitely is an impact, and Rob on that end. But I think they have a lot of still good wing defenders that can help build that wall on Giannis. The Embiid thing is, look, if Al's not healthy, you're gonna struggle to guard him. But there were times last year where they played Philly. I remember the game in Boston, and both Al and Rob were out, and it was the Blake Griffin game, and and Embiid, they held him in check. I don't know what. They just seem to have the secret sauce with Embiid, and maybe that changes. It seems like Embiid almost gets in his own head against the Celtics. So they've always just had a really mentality of guys just not being afraid to go at him or defend him. And maybe the thing that hampered Embiid the most actually last year wasn't the Celtics; it was the injury he was coming off of in that first round. It's going to be fun to see. And it's, I do think they had to move Malcolm Brogdon. I think that thing was simmering, and I don't think it was really fixed. I read a Bullpet report just the other day about him being a smart guy and going to ask questions. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if you're a smart guy, you realize they want to trade you because they think someone's better. Like, it's not that hard to figure out. I don't care how smart you are. I think they had to make that move and move off him, and they got some roster holes to fill out at this point. But it's going to be fascinating, Mike. It's going to be fascinating the style they play defensively. It's going to be fascinating to see how they handle both White and Holiday, how they're going to utilize White now with Holiday here. Tatum and Brown are probably going to see their shots go down a little bit this season, I would think, with the addition of Porzingis and really good offensive players of Holiday and White. I think they're going to be fine with that, but you never know with young guys. So it's going to be interesting. And how do they gel early? Is it a struggle early? Because this is a huge, this is an overhaul essentially. And so
they will. I mean, you see
how is it going to look?
Super teams struggle for like half a season typically in the NBA, unless they were like the Kevin Garnett Boston Celtics. Has a history of these teams like really struggling out the gate. Maybe Golden State didn't either with Kevin Durant, but that was a whole different animal. I wouldn't be surprised if they're playing 500 ball for a month or two. I really wouldn't.
And the last thing I'll add to this now is obviously the Celtics have a lot of playoff experience. They've been through a lot of battles, up and down this roster. Now they have a championship medal too. They have had a guy that has been there and done that. It's something they haven't had in the past. How much does that really mean in the end? I think it does matter.
I think it means a lot.
So that's just an interesting wrinkle to throw into this. This is a stacked team. It's going to be how healthy can they stay, especially at the big spot between Horford and Porzingis. But they're healthy going into the playoffs. They're healthy during the playoffs. Flip a coin, I guess, between them and Milwaukee. It's It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and then when they take on Denver, that's going to be fun too. Everybody's counting Denver out, even though they have the best player in the universe.
Oh, they shouldn't. They shouldn't count him out. Yeah.
No, do not count that guy
I
out.
imagine
But
Jamal Murray's going to be even better this year. Yeah, I think that would be crazy to count them out.
yeah, Michael Porter Jr. is going to be healthy.
Yeah.
And he wasn't very good last year, and he's a really good player. My last point about Holiday and why I'm excited about this, I do think the championship experience matters a lot. And the reason I say that is the way they won the championship in Milwaukee was special too. I mean, they were down 3-2, and they went down 3-2 on a buzzer beater on like an incredible inbound pass by Jay Crowder. And I feel like everybody in the world thought Phoenix was taking that series. And he shut down Chris Paul for 2 straight games. Just took him out. He outplayed him on both ends of the floor, and just, really, in a lot of ways, Giannis was definitely the MVP of the series because what Giannis was doing in that series was insane. But on the defensive end, Holiday was huge in that series, and I think that's what he's going to bring here. The Celtics have a history of tough moments where they've kind of fallen apart in the playoffs. And now I feel like they finally have a guy who's going to be that steady hand to get them through it. And I do think that's important for Brown and Tatum because they need another guy to help them get over the top to get that one championship. And I do think we have it now. So I'm excited. I'm really excited for the season to start. And I'm excited for June when Milwaukee and Boston meet in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, definitely. And all those points are important points. And, is this going to be the guy that bridges the gap between their failures and successes? I've also heard some stuff about the end of the game stuff. I mean, you and I have talked about that ad nauseum. I think that has more to do with Tatum accepting a different role at the end of the game and pushing the ball than it has anything to do with Jrue Holiday and Marcus Smart. I just don't think it's a Jason Tatum thing, and hopefully he can make that next step. My closing thought, Mike, to wrap up. I put on sports radio last week after the Dame Lillard trade, and I immediately heard, Dame Lillard didn't want to play for you. He said over and over again he doesn't want to come to Boston and he doesn't want to play for you, and nobody wants to play for you. Jrue Holiday had the Celtics on the top of his list.
And they're already talking about an extension.
So, honestly, sports radio, once again, just eat shit.
Mm-hmm.
Shit. It is... Yeah. It is for the mindless. Fox News on your sports radio dial.
Yeah, and all week long they were saying like, "Well, the Celtics don't have the balls to pull the trigger. They should be willing to part with guys." I guarantee on Monday morning they're going to be like, "The more I thought about it, this is actually a horrible trade." Yeah.
All right. Hey, let's close it up, and we'll talk soon.
All right, go Celtics.